best talk every day and music on the weekends. We are the world famous 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Thursday, January 23rd. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today, warmer than it's been. I mean, not a whole lot warmer, but the high is going to be close to 30. Tonight and overnight, clear, low 19, and then Friday, sunshine, high 34. You can pull out the shorts. If you are walking out the door with us right now, it is 13 and partly cloudy in Eastchester up in Westchester, which sometimes can be confusing. It's 5 and cloudy in Hanover in New Jersey, and it is 18 and mostly clear right outside our Midtown studios. We got a lot to get to as we work our way up. 6 o'clock hour, Sid and Friends in the morning. A wild story out of Long Island. A bird flu outbreak there is having just what is a devastating impact on Suffolk County's largest and last commercial duck farm. So the H5N1 outbreak is at the Crescent Duck Farm, and it has forced the farm to cease operations, and they've been asked to euthanize their entire flock. And you might be saying, no, okay, what's the big deal? Well, it's 100,000 ducks they're going to euthanize. I mean, they're going to essentially put this poor guy out of business. The outbreak was confirmed just a couple days ago. Here's the Suffolk County Health Commissioner.
Unfortunately, when you have a situation like this, where you have a flock that's infected, the remedy is to put the entire flock down. In this particular incident, it's over 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Despite the havoc it's wreaking on the farm, health officials are trying to convince us that there's almost no chance of us getting sick from the bird flu. Here's a doctor at Stony Brook Children's Hospital.
Yes, we've seen sporadic cases, but even amongst those sporadic cases, it hasn't then gone to the rest of their families, to the rest of their contacts. So it's really not getting into our human hosts.
All right, so we've seen bird flu to humans, and those humans have not given it to another human. You follow what I'm saying? So that's why they say they're not terribly worried about that at this point. But the people who are going to euthanize these 100,000 ducks over the coming days, they're going to get all kinds of injections, so hopefully they stay okay. And for the family, and I reached out to this family, but I did not hear back from them. But the Crescent Duck Farm is owned and operated by this family since 1908. The owner is Doug Corwin. Essentially, he's kind of losing his entire life work. I mean, this is crazy. He's going to have to lay off 47 of the 75 workers there. I think that's already started. And then, of course, he has to fear about what's going to happen in the future. Can he rebuild this farm? And then you have others, of course, who are watching as this entire flock on Long Island, not too far away from us, 100,000 ducks being put to death. They're wondering, I mean, they would have been killed anyway for meat, but understand what I'm saying. They're being put out, and they're not going to make any money on these ducks. And everybody's watching from the outside trying to figure out what this means. One of them is John D. Leonardo. He's with Humane Long Island, and he is worried about the fact that this bird flu could become a bigger deal.
COVID has a 0.5% morbidity, whereas avian influenza has a 50% morbidity rate. So God forbid this mutates to readily go from human to human. We're looking at the next pandemic.
So health officials again saying that so far there's been no human-to-human spread of the bird flu, even though a couple humans, a few in Texas, have gotten their bird flu. So we're going to watch this story awfully closely.
We're going to test them for H5N1 and also offer what they call prophylactic measures. In this case, it would be Tamiflu or also Tamivir.
Yeah, I mean, crazy, right? We've seen this all over the world, and now it's not too far away, right out on Long Island. Bird flu has been detected in wild birds and poultry in New York since 2022, but we've never seen this sort of mass euthanization, 100,000 ducks at that Crescent Duck Farm on Long Island. 5:04. A federal judge Rejecting former Senator Bob Menendez's bid for a retrial, Menendez's lawyers have argued that his conviction should be dismissed because the jury was given a laptop that contained material that was supposed to be excluded from the trial. But the judge ruled yesterday it was unlikely the jurors were even aware of the materials because they were not referenced at all during the actual trial. Menendez, you'll remember, found guilty last summer of accepting cash and gold bars to benefit the country of Egypt. 2 businessmen were also convicted, and Menendez's wife is awaiting trials on similar charges. She's battling cancer, though. His sentencing date is the 29th, so 6 days from now. And the thought is he could get about 14 years behind bars. That's what prosecutors want. Of course, Menendez is going to fight this right till the last moment. 5:05. Just an awful day in Nashville, Tennessee. Another school shooting, 2 students dead, 2 others injured after gunfire at Nashville High School on Wednesday.
This individual made his way to the cafeteria where he then confronted a 16-year-old, as we identified as a female Hispanic student, fired, striking her. She is deceased.
Nashville Police Chief John Drake says the gunman also shot a 17-year-old boy before turning the gun on himself, killing himself. The boy suffered a graze wound to the arm. He's been released. A second student injured from a fall while they were trying to run away from this guy. Drake says the shooter, a 17-year-old who rode the bus to the school, Antioch High. The shooting happened around 11 o'clock in the cafeteria.
There is another male, 17-year-old young man that was wounded with a graze wound, and he has been treated at Vanderbilt and released. The shooter was 17 years old. He entered into the cafeteria, firing multiple rounds in the cafeteria, striking her, and then before pulling the weapon on himself.
Just a horrific day at Antioch High, which was closed today, without a surprise. And the officers, of course, who raced to the school, had no idea what they were responding to.
At 11:11, we started receiving calls for service. Officers responded and found the male shooter deceased in the cafeteria.
Now, of course, the question always is this thing is a motive, and even if we found out what the motive is, it never makes a whole lot of sense, but just another awful day. This school shooting, this time in Nashville, Tennessee. WABC News Time 5:08. Can you believe there are more fires to tell you about in Southern California today? Another fire ripping through. Antonio is an Oxnard, and he's describing the scene there.
We got ash snowing down on us and an ominous-looking gray-orange cloud.
Yeah, this is the Hughes fire. It sparked up yesterday. It's blackened about 3,400 acres. This has also forced the closure of a section of Interstate 5. That's the state's major north-south route. The blaze comes as crews are still battling the Palisades and Eaton fire. Those are the ones that started over 2 weeks ago. It continues just to be a mess. And, of course, you wonder, are people purposely setting these fires now?
I told my son-in-law, he was asking, hey, where's this coming from? And I told him it's the Hughes fire. He couldn't believe that it was coming from so far away.
Yeah, thousands under mandatory evacuation orders. These are people who thought, okay, I escaped all these blazes, and now it's in their neighborhood.
So as long as I get my dogs out and I get some of the childhood pictures out, we're good to go. It's a little nerve-wracking, but there's nothing that I can do about it, so I have to stay somewhat calm about it and just roll with it. We've done it before. It's happened before.
Lots of people racing home to see this massive plume of smoke in their neighborhood.
And I was probably one of the last cars that was able to make it past the barricades, just because I want to make sure I got my dogs.
Yeah, of course, people rushing home to get whatever they could because they've seen what's happened in other parts of Southern California where people have lost their homes.
It's definitely a lot closer. The wind's blowing this way. We had a fire here probably like 2 years ago. It was more on the backside that way, so we've had to evacuate before. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just hope it doesn't jump across the lake, but with the winds, you don't know.
Yeah, so this one, as of last night, this newest fire that broke out Southern California, was 0% contained.
Heartbreaking. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's super sad because these are our homes. These are where we've lived for years and years and years.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get an update on that fire. But boy, what have they have gone through over the last 2 weeks in Southern California. 5:10, while we're out in California, Senator Alex Padilla says President Trump is in the fight for his life if he takes a hard line on immigration in California.
If it's a battle that President Trump wants and the battle that he's going to get from California.
Padilla says California is the most diverse state in the nation, home to more immigrants than any other state. He says the vast majority living in California have been doing so for years, working, paying taxes, raising families.
California is not just the most populous state in the nation. We're the most diverse state in the nation and home to more immigrants than any state in the nation. For all the talk about violent criminals from the president and Republicans in Congress, that's the vast minority. And Democrats agree we should go after them and hold them accountable, but not in a way that instills fear and creates chaos.
So California, not the only state, of course, that's pushing back against President Trump's executive actions. Several organizations in Florida, same thing, Coalition for Americans for Immigrant Justice, they call themselves, explaining the rights of migrants when confronted by an ICE agent, as ICE agents will span out over the coming weeks. First to go after migrants who are criminals here to send them packing.
You cannot be searched, nor can your belongings be searched without probable cause or consent. So that means you have the right to say, no, I don't consent to a search.
They essentially have been having these workshops for migrants worried that they may be the next person that has an ICE agent knocking at their door.
Once employers have a plan in place, they should make sure their workers understand the plan and practice the plan like a fire drill. An immigration officer cannot detain you without reasonable suspicion. Anyone who gets detained should ask for a lawyer immediately. And make sure you have an experienced immigration attorney's contact information with you at all times.
And attorney generals from nearly 24 states have been suing now to block President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. But Congressman Chip Roy, he's from Texas. He thinks they'll lose this battle.
The subject to the jurisdiction thereof does not mean that you have a right to citizenship simply for being on our soil and being born on our soil.
The Texas Republican speaking out in favor of the immigration policy on Capitol Hill. The president's opponents argue that birthright citizenship is enshrined in the Constitution, and neither the president nor Congress can change that.
There is significant and ample evidence.
Yes, so part of that evidence that the Republican Congressman Roy is pointing to is the clause in the 14th Amendment that argues that children born to illegal immigrants are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and therefore not eligible for citizenship. And that's what President Trump will continue to argue. Meanwhile, the Pentagon sending an additional 1,500 active duty troops now to the southern border.
According to multiple reports, a U.S. official confirmed the news. That's on top of the 2,500 service members already at the border, ordered there by the Biden administration. These additional service members will deploy across the border by the end of the month. I'm Brian Shook.
Of course, this all comes after President Trump declared a national emergency at the southern border, day one after he was inaugurated. And that is music to the ears of law enforcement down at the southern border.
The morale right now is at an all-time high. I think now that we know that we have a strong ally at the federal level, which is something that we have not had in the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's Lieutenant Chris Olivares. He's with the Texas State Troopers. He says they felt handcuffed by the last administration, which he says put a priority on migrants coming over instead of stopping illegal immigration.
They have stronger leadership now, so that really has raised the morale to epic proportions.
Yeah, and he says that's good because he says they'll have help now at the southern border.
They feel like they can actually go out and do their job more efficiently, and they're going to have the support they need.
And last night, the House passed the Laken Riley Act, of course, named after a murdered Georgia nursing student. She was murdered by an illegal immigrant.
The legislation was passed Wednesday, aiming to clamp down on illegal immigrants who commit nonviolent crimes like theft. It will be the first bill sent to President Trump to sign into law after returning to the White House this week. The Laken Riley Act would require ICE to detain undocumented immigrants who are charged, arrested, or convicted of committing acts of burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting. I'm Mark Mayfield.
All right, in a moment, we're going to hear from President Trump, who sat down for an interview with Sean Hannity last night, talking about all the pardons he handed out and all the pardons that Joe Biden handed out on the way out. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Good morning, Justin Ellick.
Good morning, Noam all in. We'll start with some offseason NFL news out of New York Jets camp. Aaron Glenn, most recently the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator, was hired as the 19th non-interim head coach in Jets history. Terms of the deal were not announced, but sources told ESPN that Glenn received a 5-year contract tying him to the Jets through 2029. The Jets are still looking to hire a general manager. They conducted an in-person interview with former longtime Lions executive Lance Newmark, the only known candidate to have a second interview. Newmark, the Washington Commanders' assistant GM in 2024, overlapped with Glenn in Detroit from 2021 to 2023. Cincinnati Bengals senior personnel executive Trey Brown and Denver Broncos assistant GM Darren Moogie also will have second interviews, sources did reveal. To the NBA and the Nets in Brooklyn, where they fell convincingly, 108-84 to the visiting Phoenix Suns. Keon Johnson scored 20.
God, are they bad? Oh, my God.
I mean, they're just, they lose every night.
By huge scores, though. It's not even close.
It's like a waste of time to even mention them, to be honest with you. I know you have to. They're a professional sports team in the tri-state area. But they lose every single night, and they're not only losing, they lose by like 30 points every night. And Kevin Durant returned last night. By the way, he's had like 20 points for 20 straight games, so he's on a historic scoring clip lately. But he mentioned, if you're a Nets fan, hang in there. You got a bunch of draft assets that you've accumulated over the last couple of seasons through trades and whatnot. And, a couple more years of suffering, and it might turn into some talent on the court.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so poorly managed, this team. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Noam. So we shall see in the years to come. But for right now, they are a bad basketball team. Coming up next for them, following last night's loss, they'll host Miami on Saturday when they're set to retire Hall of Famer Vince Carter's number 15 jersey during a halftime ceremony. You'll get to remember better times for the Nets if you're a fan at that game. To the ice in Jersey, where Dawson Mercer scored twice during New Jersey's 4-goal second period, and the Devils beat the Boston Bruins 5-1. Up next for the Devs, they'll visit Montreal on Saturday. The Rangers will be out there tonight as well, getting set for a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Garden against the Philadelphia Flyers. That is your Sports Know, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:19. Let's go down to D.C. President Trump defending the almost 1,500 pardons given to defendants charged in connection to the January 6th Capitol riots.
And you know what they were there for? They were protesting the vote because they knew the election was rigged, and they were protesting the vote. And that should be allowed to protest the vote.
The president doing a sit-down with Sean Hannity on Fox News last night, saying that those protesters, he called them, were absolutely innocent, and he says they've served too long of a time behind bars.
They were very minor incidents, okay? They get built up by that couple of fake guys that are on CNN all the time.
Nobody watches.
They were very minor incidents, and it was time. A number of reasons. Number one, they were in there for 3.5 years, a long time. Right. And in many solitary confinement, treated like nobody's ever been treated so badly.
And President Trump says many of the issues of the past 4 years would not have happened if he had been still in office.
We wouldn't have inflation. We wouldn't have had the Afghanistan disaster. We wouldn't have October 7th with Israel, where so many people were killed. And you wouldn't have a Ukraine war going on.
And he blames the Democrats.
It showed us a couple of things. It showed us that the radical left, their philosophies and policies are horrible.
And when it comes to these immigration issues we were talking about earlier, these executive orders, he says he believes that people in places like California, they don't want sanctuary cities anymore.
If you actually poll the people, they don't want sanctuary cities, but Gavin Newsom does, and these radical left politicians do. And if you asked them why, they couldn't even. I watched Gavin Newsom try to answer that question. He was unable to even answer. He looked like an idiot.
521 refugee flights into the U.S. They've come to a halt by order of the president after he suspended the State Department's refugee program.
Among those affected are 1,600 Afghans cleared to resettle in the U.S. after America's withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Advocates say refugees are now stranded across the globe amid this new suspension. Sally Patterson, New York.
WABC News Time 521. It appears the State Department is already making changes to its website that reflect President Trump's executive orders over defining men and women and how they describe themselves.
A webpage titled Selecting Your Gender Marker for people applying for a passport or updating it looks to have been removed. The page now redirects to a general passport information page. As recently as Tuesday morning, users could select male, female, or unspecified or another gender identity as the gender marker on their U.S. passport books and cards. Trump signed an executive order on Monday that declared the federal government will recognize only two sexes going forward, male and female. The order directed Secretaries of State and Homeland Security to implement changes to require that government-issued IDs accurately reflect the holder's gender at birth. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
522, a leading Jewish human rights organization, criticizing Elon Musk for a gesture he made at President Trump's inauguration events on Monday.
Musk repeatedly used a straight-arm salute at the event that garnered harsh backlash online. There were side-by-side comparisons with him and Adolf Hitler giving the same salute. Now, the Simon Wiesenthal Center has released a statement saying they're deeply alarmed by the gestures, which they say unmistakably resembles a Nazi salute. They added that the gesture's undeniable similarity to such a hateful and historically loaded symbol is unacceptable. They also called on Musk to take swift and decisive action to clarify if he's been misinterpreted and to apologize for the gesture. I'm Michael Kastner.
House Speaker Mike Johnson, one of the Republicans defending President Trump's pardons of those January 6 rioters.
The president has the pardon and commutation authority. It's his decision.
Johnson says he believes in second chances. Those full pardons include former Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio, David Dempsey, who attacked police officers with pepper spray and flagpoles, and others, including... I don't have his name here, but there's a third person as well.
What was made clear all along is that peaceful protests and people who engage in that should never be punished. There was a weaponization of the Justice Department. There was a weaponization of the events. It was a terrible time and a terrible chapter in America's history.
524, the Trump administration has taken down the Spanish language version of the White House website now.
The site used to provide presidential information in Spanish. Now, following the Trump inauguration, users who visit get a 404-page not found error message. Beneath the message was a redirect button that said, "Go home." The button has since been changed and now says, "Go to homepage." The White House Spanish page also went dark during the last Trump administration. I'm Michael Kastner.
Supreme Court hearing arguments in a case that could have a huge impact on police immunity. It involves a deadly shooting that happened nearly 10 years ago on a toll road in Houston.
When an officer doing his duty confronts a threat to his safety or the safety of others, it is reasonable for that officer to use force to end that threat.
That's attorney Charles McLeod. He represents Harris County Constable Roberto Felix, who pulled a car over for toll violations. The driver tried to speed away. Felix fired 2 shots, killing him. The victim's family sued. If it's upheld by the high court, it could pave the way for more excessive force lawsuits against law enforcement. Attorney McLeod says there's a legal precedent allowing officers to use deadly force when their lives are in danger.
At the moment Sergeant Felix used force, he was clinging to the side of a fleeing suspect's car, and Felix reasonably believed that his life was in imminent danger.
And now he's urging the high court to uphold previous rulings which grant police immunity when their lives are in danger.
An officer doesn't lose his right to defend himself just because he made a mistake at an earlier point in time.
WABC News Time 525. Let's go overseas. Israel's military chief of staff going to step down in March over his failure to prevent the October 7th attacks. NBC's Danielle Hem-Anjan reports that the resignation of Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi does not come as a surprise.
He said on multiple occasions since October 7th that he would be stepping down because he wanted to take responsibility for the failures of the security establishment on that day. And he's doing so now because he said there have been significant achievements and that Israel was now implementing the ceasefire deal. The chief of the IDF has announced his resignation. His last day on the job will be March 6th, just a few days after the end of the first stage of the ceasefire deal. Many were accusing him of delaying the end of the war because he knew that an inquiry or a commission launched into the failures of that day was just impending, and it would happen as soon as he would resign.
And as that ceasefire deal seems to be holding up with Gaza, Israel and Gaza, has also begun a military operation in a refugee camp in the West Bank. 2 Americans who were being held in Afghanistan now free as part of a prisoner swap that was accomplished in the final hours of President Biden's presidency.
The two Americans exchanged in the deal were Ryan Corbett and William McEntee. In return, the U.S. released Khan Mohammed. He's been described as a key funder of the Taliban.
Yeah, the exchange actually wasn't completed until President Trump took office. They say in part because of the bad weather conditions in Afghanistan.
President Donald Trump's new administration has welcomed the prisoner swap, but a spokesperson says they will continue to demand the release of all Americans held by the Taliban.
Best talk every day and music on the weekends. We are the world famous 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. 5 o'clock, or no, what am I saying? It's 5:35. There we go. Good morning. It is Thursday, January 23rd. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds. Today, a little warmer than it has been. High 29. Tonight and overnight clear. Low 19. And then Friday sunshine. High 34. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. 13 partly cloudy in East Chester, which is up in Westchester County. It's 5 and cloudy in Hanover in New Jersey. And it's 18 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour over in New Jersey with this disturbing pattern of home break-ins continues to take place. When I talk about home break-ins, it's people breaking into homes as their home in the middle of the night. The latest one, Sayreville, New Jersey, and what apparently these people were looking for, who this crew of people, in this case it was 3 people or 4, who were trying to break in a home in Sayreville on early Sunday morning. They were looking for a key fob for a very expensive car out in the driveway. And I guess apparently these guys know that most people keep their keys somewhere near the front door because it's easier to find that way. And that's why they will break in and break out very quickly. Well, this poor woman, Julia, she wakes up to hear this crew of people breaking into her house.
I then went to the top of the steps and I heard what sounded like furniture moving. And that's when I realized somebody was in the house. So I screamed, running down the hallway, woke my husband up. He got up with the bats, started making noise to come to the steps to deter them and get them out of the house as quick as possible.
Yeah, so she alerts the house. By the way, everybody's home. 2 kids, wife, husband. Meanwhile, there's 3 or 4 people in the house. They're probably all searching for the key and not a whole lot more.
At that time, we didn't know how many people were in the house. Then my husband saw only one of them running from the living room out. And at that point, he screamed, got down there. Then he went around the house to make sure that there was nobody else in there.
Yeah, so this is about 3 or 4 in the morning. I mean, think about what they're going up against. They don't know who lives in the house, who might have a gun, and they're willing to break in to try and steal a car. So she says that she's telling her story because she wants other people to know that not only did they have doorbell cameras facing outward, but she said their porch was brightly lit. So you can see these 4. I mean, they're covered in masks, so you can't make out who they are. But they weren't even afraid of that, the fact that there were cameras and bright lights out on the porch.
This definitely showed us, our vulnerabilities. We really thought this is trauma. If I could prevent any other family from going through what we did, it's all worth it. You know what I mean? Because it's really sad and terrifying that this is the world we live in, where criminals can basically just run amok and do what they want.
Yeah, it is really. By the way, as a kid, twice people tried to break into our house middle of the night. Twice I woke up my parents to tell them I heard someone was in the house. And we did the exact same thing these people did. My father picked up a baseball bat and started screaming as he walked down the flight of stairs, and they ran out. But boy, that sticks with you. And she says it sticks with her. Police say, they're looking for this crew, but they haven't been able to find them. WABC News Time, 5:40 last night. Mayor Adams holding one of his town hall meetings, met by a crowd of immigrants who were worried they may be deported by ICE agents. This was in Corona, Queens.
I want to meet with him and give him a message that he should not be tolerated. He should not be getting involved in mass deportation.
So there were people who got a chance to do a Q&A with the mayor after he spoke, and this one woman got up. She says she's a teacher, works at a school, is worried about ICE agents showing up at her school to deport kids in the classroom.
I cannot tell you how many parents have come to me today to ask
inquire what can they do. They're scared. The kids are scared.
So here was how the mayor responded.
Children should go to school. Those who need health care should go to hospitals. Those who are involved in any type of interaction where they're victims of a crime, they should speak to the law enforcement agencies. We've maintained that over and over again. And we're going to continue to stand up for all New Yorkers, documented and undocumented.
The mayor saying last night that federal immigration enforcement here in the city, he says, will be focused on a small number of people who are committing crimes. Now, in New York, there are more than 400,000 migrants living here, people illegally living here. Manhattan Church, one of the places that says it'll resist President Trump's orders giving ICE agents the authority to conduct raids and arrest illegals in sensitive locations like churches and schools. This is St. Paul and St. Andrew United Methodist Church. It's up on the Upper West Side. I think it's West 87th Street. They put up a sign telling ICE agents who might show up that they're not welcome.
It doesn't just go against centuries of tradition. It goes against our federal laws that protect our religious mission. We needed to communicate immediately and effectively.
Yeah, I don't know whether that sign's going to keep anybody away. 541. New York City's plan to have officers riding subway trains well underway. It started on Monday. When the program is completely rolled out, which is just in the next week or so, there will be 2 NYPD cops on every single overnight train, all 150 of them, between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. to help riders feel safer. So Mayor Adams, he took a ride on the L train to talk with passengers and check out how this new plan is working out.
We know these random acts of violence have shaken New Yorkers, and we all know safety is more than just stats. We know people must not only be safe, they must feel safe.
And he said, talking to riders, they said they were happy, who wouldn't be, to have 2 officers on every train. Well, right now, it's not every train, but it'll be every train in the next coming days.
But we're clear when we speak to passengers, they want to feel safe, and nothing does a better job in doing that than the presence of that blue uniform.
It's all part of Governor Hochul's plan to address subway safety, which places officers on every single overnight train. It'll cost taxpayers about $77 million to do that. Mayor Adams, meanwhile, talking about the 20,000 guns, he says, that have been taken off city streets during his administration, holding a press conference with NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, making the announcement, touting the progress that's been made over the last 3 years.
Comparing 2021 to 2024, we are down 659 shooting incidents and 775 fewer victims. That is a 42% reduction in shootings.
Of the more than 20,000 guns that were taken off the street, some of them were these ghost guns, which are untraceable.
That's 20,000 weapons that no longer can threaten the safety of New Yorkers and our neighborhoods, our families, and our children. 20,000 fewer chances that a New Yorker is shot or killed.
544. Yesterday was the day that the public advocate, in this case Jumaane Williams, put out his list of the worst landlords across the city. He called out dozens of landlords who failed to make all kinds of building repairs. And the top 5 offenders, I mean, some of the names you may recognize, but top of that list, Barry Singer, Alfred Thompson, Karen Greer, Melanie Martin, and Claudette Henry. According to the advocate, they've broken just about every rule you can as a landlord to make people's lives miserable.
What we find is that these landlords do their best to try to hide who they are. She prevented access from the public to certain LLC information that would tell folks who owns companies, and in this case, buildings.
Yeah, so he says those 5 people are hiding behind LLCs, so they're impossible to find when repairs need to be made. Olga Camille, one of the people who lives in one of their buildings, this is West 170th Street, that's up in Washington Heights. She gave reporters a tour of her apartment. I mean, this place is just awful. Nobody would want to live there. And she says she was embarrassed to show the apartment, but she wanted to see what she has to deal with.
I feel so bad because it's so dirty. We fight 5 years. So only me and my daughter living in this apartment. So anyway, we feel unsecure.
Yeah, now I know this is a complicated issue because a lot of these apartments are ones that are protected, and there's only a certain amount of rent you can charge, and so it's tough to make ends meet. Totally understand that, but I don't understand is how someone a landlord puts their head on a pillow knowing people are living in such miserable places where, I mean, there's this woman's apartment. I mean, if you could see it, I could show it to you. It's just disgusting. And there's rats, there's holes in the ceiling, holes in the walls. And there's no money, apparently, that's coming from the landlord to fix it all. And here's a guy who lives in one of these buildings as well, and it's out in Brooklyn.
Nothing. He constantly wants money, but he don't fix nothing. The only thing we get good in here is hot water and heat. He just forgets about you. It's like he's in the doghouse and he don't want to feed you.
Yeah, so if you got to collect that rent, put your head on the pillow at night, I don't know how you do it, knowing that these people are living in such miserable environments. 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk in just an hour.
Well, thank you, Noah Maladen. We'll start with some offseason NFL news out of the Jets camp. Aaron Glenn, most recently the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator, was hired as the 19th non-interim head coach in Jets history. Terms of the deal were not announced, but sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter that Glenn received a 5-year contract tying him to the Jets through 2029. The Jets are still looking to hire a general manager. They conducted an in-person interview with former longtime Lions executive Lance Newmark, the only known candidate to have a second interview. Newmark, the Washington Commanders' assistant GM in 2024, overlapped with Glenn in Detroit from 2021 to 2023. Cincinnati Bengals senior personnel executive Trey Brown and Denver Broncos assistant GM Darren Moogie also will have second interviews, sources did reveal. To the NBA and the Nets in Brooklyn, where they fell convincingly 108-84 to the visiting Phoenix Suns. Keon Johnson scored 20 points for the Nets, who lost their 5th straight. Jalen Wilson added 15. The Nets were missing some key players. Not that it really matters either way, as former Sun Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, D'Angelo Russell, and Ben Simmons in their 9th straight home loss were all absent. Coming up
Does Ben Simmons ever play basketball?
No, not really. Yeah. And I don't even know why they continue to mention the guy. Yeah. It's like when he's out in a game, they'll mention that the Nets were missing Ben Simmons. Like, that matters.
That's like every day of the week.
Like, that matters at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes absolutely no difference on the basketball
court.
What
a disappointment.
My God, the fact that, honestly, it's impressive that he's still hanging around and playing in the NBA, to be quite honest with
he
you.
should be playing, like, in Europe
Yeah,
somewhere.
I mean, it's highway robbery what he's done to the couple of teams that he's played for.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the Sixers, all the years they spent trying to build him up. My God. Coming up next for Brooklyn, they'll host Miami on Saturday when they're set to retire Hall of Fame Famer, I should say, Vince Carter's number 15 jersey during a halftime ceremony. To the ice in Jersey, where Dawson Mercer scored twice during New Jersey's 4-goal second period, and the Devils beat the Boston Bruins 5-1. Up next for the Devs, they'll visit Montreal on Saturday. The Rangers will be out there tonight and getting set for a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Garden against the Philadelphia Flyers.
What's the line on the Eagles-Commanders game this weekend, the NFC Championship?
I believe right now it's 5.5. Well, it opened at 5.5. No. So that's where I believe it still stands. If it moves before the weekend, excuse me, I'm just pontificating here because I think
you're looking it up.
Yeah, it's -6 right now.
Okay,
the Eagles are at
Eagles fans are just they can't wait for Sunday. Neither can the mayor of Philadelphia, Sherelle Park. Sherelle Park. She's the mayor.
Yeah.
She's like a lot of Eagles fans. She has a tough time spelling.
Are you going to play? Just play the clip.
When she
just play the clip.
Let me hear you all say E-L-G-S-E-S, Eagles!
I love that.
Let's go, Birds!
Yeah, let's go, Birds.
You got the end right there.
Do you think she can spell birds?
That might
Let me hear you all say
all right, let's do it. E-L-G-S-E-S, Eagles!
Yep. Let's go, Birds!
Let's go, Birds.
She sounds like your average Eagles fan.
At least she's got the spirit. Statistically, like 52% of Philadelphia is illiterate.
Right, well, she's proving that right there.
Yeah, there you go.
These are stupid people.
Exactly. WABC News Time 5:51. A former top aide to Mayor Adams says she's not worried about a potential future behind bars.
Ingrid Lewis-Martin is facing corruption charges over accusations that she granted favors with hotel companies in the city in exchange for over $100,000 in bribes. Now the New York Post reports that Lewis-Martin tells investigators she is not afraid and says the case is wrong. According to District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office, Lewis-Martin specifically mentioned that the Department of Corrections will take care of her since she has, quote, been good to them. She has pleaded not guilty to the 4-count indictment. She is due back in court early February. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
The New York Blood Center declaring a blood emergency.
Visit New York Blood Center to get your good karma by the pint. NY Blood Center says it's seen a nearly 30% drop in donations, and that's resulted in 6,500 fewer donations, crippling the region's blood supply. With the area down to a 1 to 3 day supply, New York Blood Center is calling on everyone eligible to roll up their sleeves and donate. Several towns across the region are holding pop-up blood drives this month, but prospective donors can head online to schedule an appointment at the nearest donation clinic. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
The FDNY really worried about this cold spell, which thankfully is going to, be a little bit warmer over the coming days. But it'll get cold again. Is that people were pulling out the space heaters because their apartments, their homes weren't warm enough. And, there's always the worry of fire from these space heaters.
Also, if you're going to purchase one, look for one that has a thermostat, an overheat function, and an automatic shut-off. So should the space heater tip over, it will automatically shut itself off.
Yeah, most of them do that, but not all of them. So you have to be careful, especially if you're buying one on something like Amazon. He says space heaters should be turned off when people are sleeping or if nobody's in the room.
Once you go to sleep, you should be turning off and unplugging the space heater. It should not be running all night long while you're sleeping.
Yeah, I mean, once you get under the blankets, usually that'll keep you warm. And also the Fire Commissioner, Robert Tucker, warning folks not to use the oven to heat your home. Of course, some people have to do that when the heat goes out.
First of all, that doesn't really work. And second of all, it is a tremendous fire hazard.
Yeah.
If your oven is used, there is likely to be a fire.
Yeah. 5:54. Cops say a Manhattan woman has been injuring, or it's a man actually, a Manhattan man has been injuring his patients by injecting them with fake Chinese Botox.
Joey Grant Luther arrested Wednesday, charged with wire fraud, smuggling, and more. Police say Luther's clients at his JGL Aesthetics medical spa in Hell's Kitchen developed problems. A lazy eye, couldn't swallow, headaches. One needed a brain MRI and an ER stay. Cops say he was buying fake Botox from China and kept using it on patients even after he heard about the problems the fake drug was causing. Andrew Whitman, NBC News Radio, New York.
Governor Hochul unveiling the details of her plan to ban cell phones in schools throughout the state starting next year. I wonder why it's taking so long to do this. She's been talking about this for months. Can't you just institute it? But I guess it's just not that easy. She says a war is being waged on children's minds through these phones.
It's that profound. Kids are being besieged with addictive algorithms, toxic social media, and cell phones that just can be so manipulative that it becomes addictive like a drug.
So Hochul wants students in K through 12 schools to hand over their smartphones, watches, tablets for the entire school day, including lunch and study hall.
Sometimes the kids are pushing and shoving, but you know what? They're not glued to this. And for their developmental and emotional well-being, it is so much more positive for them to have human connections and make friends that otherwise would not be their friends because their only friends live in a virtual world.
Yeah, I can tell you just from my own experience with my kid who's in high school, my youngest one, they made them give up their phones this year in school. And so I asked him, honestly, how is it? And he says, great. He says, it's great. Not have to be answering to your phone all day long during the school day. And he says, yeah, am I learning more? Yeah, I'm definitely learning more in class because I'm not staring down at my phone during class. So again, I'm not sure why it's taking so long to institute it, but I guess it just has through the wheels of Albany. I always love these people who do things and amazing things and then just walk away and don't look for any credit. So we don't even have this guy's full name, do we? Well, he's a great story. He's a volunteer EMT here in the city, and he happened to be coming home from vacation. He was taking a subway to get back to his apartment on the Upper West Side, and a train had struck this man who had just accidentally fallen off the platform, and his leg had been severed. And so this guy, he jumps down onto the tracks. He says he carries his EMT kit with him no matter where he goes because he wants to be ready to help people out. He crosses that third rail to get to this individual. He puts a tourniquet on the man's leg.
Automatically, the ears sort of perk up. I carry with me medical gear, including a tourniquet.
So his name is Trishwell, and he says he heard all this commotion on the subway, and he said he wanted to go down to help this guy. So he said he knew that if he didn't get to him fast enough after his leg had been severed, that he might die.
Instantaneously threw that tourniquet on and stop the bleeding. The person would bleed out within probably 2 to 4 minutes.
Okay, so he does this. He puts the tourniquet on, and then he waits for the FDNY to show up, and then he leaves. And, he's not waiting around for any credit for it. But it was strap hangers who were taking video of this who were amazed at what this individual had done, who said, I want to congratulate him for what he did.
We never turn off. Whether we like to or not, there's always like a little engine that's running somewhere.
Yeah, so again, he wasn't looking for that credit, but we tracked him down. His name's Trishwell. Good job done by Trishwell. By the way, the individual whose leg was severed, God, an awful story, but he's still alive, thanks to this individual who jumped onto the tracks to save his life.
Plan on flying? It's time to upgrade to a Real ID. Because in order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a Real ID. Or you'll need another acceptable form of identification. So don't wait. Find out how to get your Real ID at tsa.gov/Real ID. That's tsa.gov/Real ID. Or visit your local DMV. And then you'll be cleared for takeoff.